Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers. This is Annie 150. And this is Module 5, and we are on Part 3 of our video series, unwrapping this Dagger. So we ran into some issues, meaning that we've got some strange UV shells right here. So what I'm going to do is, if you don't see these, that's probably a good thing. But if you do, this is how you fix it. But if you don't, no big deal. So I'm going to select those. Let's go to edge mode and see if I can get those selected. Let's click off here somewhere. There we go. You can see how it gets stuck sometimes. So I'm going to select those in edge mode. So right click, edge mode, click over here, and then marquee select inside the UV editor. And notice it selects all of those. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to cut and sew and go to move and sew. Okay, what that did was it forced all of those to sew. But the problem is it's really distorted now. So when I go in here and click on the checkerboard, you can see how terribly distorted this is. Okay, so to fix that, I'm going to click off the checkerboard, and I'm going to go into UV shell. Again, I'm right mouse clicking and then over the object and go to UV shell, click on the UV shell, and I'm going to click on unfold. Okay, here we go. So you can see, you can't really tell yet. I'm going to do the other one too. So click on that one and click on unfold. Okay, that looks pretty good. So the only thing we're going to do is we're going to select both of those at the same time. They kind of got rotated a little bit. This one's not so bad. I'm going to click on orient shells. Okay. Now sometimes it doesn't do so good, so let's kind of rotate them maybe up like this and hit orient. Okay, so I'm just going to have to physically do it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate until that's flat right here. As you can see how if I move it a little bit, it gets a little bit jaggedy. Make sure you move it, rotate it until it's flat. See, that looks pretty good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move that up into that space here. Okay. Click on this guy right here. Do the same thing. Just rotate until that's about as flat as you can take it. Here we go. And hit the W key and then move that up. Okay. Now these are too big to put side by side, so what I can do is I can move that just above the other one, like that. And we don't want them too close to the sides, and that's one thing you should always remember. You can never go outside of that box, the UV box. If you do, you'll get all kinds of really bad errors. Okay, so that's not a good idea. So let's go ahead and just move these around. Give them space between each other. Okay, that looks pretty good. And so that's our first one. Now you can see if we have any real issues is that we can click on, again, the checkerboard, and it looks like it's looking really nice. Okay, all right. The next thing we've got to think about is what's called textile density. I know we've talked maybe a little bit about that, but now it's a really good time, and if the more objects you have, the more things you unwrap, it gets quite obvious that textile density can play a big part in how nice your textures look and how crisp and clean and clear they look. So when we look at this pommel, it has a lot smaller squares than this. Okay, what that's telling you is that texture space for this object is a lot more. There's a lot more texture space. The smaller the squares are, the higher resolution that this image is going to have, or this object is going to have, that UV map. So the big squares tell me that there's going to be a lot less resolution. So how do we fix that? Well, you can go in there one at a time and hit the R key and scale them up, and when you scale them up you can see that the squares or cubes are getting smaller. And you can manually look at those and match them. So those are matched pretty good. And how did I do that? Well, I just kind of looked at right here. Okay, as I was moving them, I can see how big those cubes were getting, and they're roughly about the same. It's not exact, right? So then I would go and click off to this because it's very hard to see what's going on in there. So I'm going to hit the W key and move that around until I can get a nice space. Okay, so we can do that manually for each one, but wouldn't it be easier to try to do them all at once? That makes sense to me. So let's try that, and let me show you how to do that. So once you get the right scale that you want, and you want all of them to match that, what's called the textile density, then we want to go under, it's under the transform. So let's scroll down. And here you see textile density. It's almost at the very bottom. It is at the very bottom. And then there's create. Okay. So there's textile density here. And you find, what you do is you lay out the biggest piece of your object, of your model, and then you want to match that textile density. You want everything else to match that. Okay. And then you go from there. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to click on get. Okay, that textile density is very high. It's 116.658. Usually I see when I pack a object, there's several pieces, and I usually get around 20 or 30. So this is absolutely incredibly high. So your resolution is going to be really high, and that's fine. And so what we're going to do here is you select the rest of them. So basically you just kind of move this away, out of the way, and then you select these guys, and then you click on set. Okay, when you do that, now all of them will match exactly, and there's no worries. You don't have to worry about, is it going to really match? Yeah, absolutely. Now the question here is, now that the textile density is set, there's no way I can fit both of these in here at the same time, and we can't overlap. See, there's an overlap here. You can't do that. So I kind of messed up, or did I? The question is, this one still fits. Now, the rule of thumb is if you can't see, when you're in game, if you can't see the other side from this perspective, and I turn it, see how it's moving, and I can't, and then I can see that side, but I can't see that side at the same time I'm seeing this side. You can overlap your textures. Okay, now there is a problem with overlapping textures, is that your normal maps don't bake as well, or they shadow. So even though I'd love to be able to map, lay these over top of each other, it's probably not going to happen, because we get all kinds of errors with normal mapping. If we didn't have to normal map, we could go ahead and overlap them. And how would you do that? Just to show you, you would select both of them, and you would scroll down, and you would go to stack shells, and they stack them automatically, which is really cool. Okay, but we don't want to do that, so let's click on one and move that out. Okay, so what we want to do is the textile density is too big, too large to be able to get both these in there no matter what I do. And I might be able to get them in here like that, but then I'd have to rotate these things, and I'm not even sure if it's even possible, and fit them in there that way, right? So I could try that, and I could probably do it, maybe. Let's see here. Okay, now it depends on the textures. Okay, it might work. Okay, depending on how you want your textures to flow, this could be a problem, but yeah, there's no way I can do it. Right, so what you want to do, and it's not a waste of time. I'm going to go back, Control Z back. The way you can do this now is to scale it down, okay, and see if you can fit them all in there like that. So that would probably work. Yeah, that'd probably work. So what you do is you go in here and take that one, and it may take a while before you get the textile density just right. So go ahead and get, and you can see that went down, and then you're going to select the rest of them, holding the Shift key, and click on Set. Now obviously everything is going to work now. So now we can get all these in there, get them moved around, and you just kind of have to play with it until you get it just the way you want it. Okay? And so now when I go in here and I turn on the checkerboard, you can see that the textile density looks really good. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure that the textile density is the same throughout the whole entire model. You don't want this to be super detailed and then the rest of it not so detailed. So the idea here is you probably want to click on the largest piece and set up your textile density from your largest piece. Okay? So I started at the pommel and probably shouldn't have started there because the blade is the largest area that I have. So, but it's not a problem. It's easy to do. It doesn't take that much time. Is that let's go back to the pommel part, and what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and move those shells over. So click off the checkerboard and move those over like that. And I can even probably move those down quite a ways. Let's go into that. Okay? Alright, something like that. And the next one is going to be the blade, so we can get the textile density just right. So the idea is to go into selection mode, and with this one we could do the automatic mapping, and that's fine. Let's do that. I usually tend to start with that. UV, and then automatic map. We've already got it set. If you're worried, go ahead and click on it and go ahead and edit, reset settings, and then click on project. You can see it lays that blade out nicely for us. We literally don't have to do anything right here, which is just wonderful, right? It mapped it out pretty good. Problem is that it's so close to the edge. Maya did a really fantastic job, but it's too close. So I'm going to click off, right click over the UV shell. I'm going to click anywhere here, click on the model again, go back into the UV shell, and let's scale that down just a smidgen, just a little bit. Okay, and just move it over like that. Okay. Now depending on how you want, like if you find a texture, a metal texture with and most metals have tiny microscopic scratches, and then some have very deep scratches. So with that, you gotta remember, how do you want them to lay? So which way do you want the grain to go? So you have to think about that. Wood is the biggest problem, getting that right. Wood grain is there's just some wood grain you can't have it go a certain way, and the only way I know that is because I do a lot of carpentry work. So I know that when you're making furniture, that there's a certain way the grain will run for the most strength, and so you really got to watch that especially when you're working with wood textures, to make sure the wood grain is going the right way. If it's going the wrong way, it's going to look really bad. So we're not worried about wood grain or anything right now, but I just want to let you know that you could come up, that could happen sometime, and you need to think about that. Anyway, so the blades are good. So now we need, because they're the largest, we need to pull the textile density from these first. So let's go ahead and get, right? And then what I'm going to do is once I can go ahead and click on the other one and then set it. Okay, so they're at 34.7159. So that's way different than what we had before with the pommel, right? Alright, so let's take a look. Excuse me, I'm yawning. It's really getting late for me. I'm going to click on the checker map, and I'm going to go in here, and you can see that really high resolution there, but then when we get down here, it's not the same, and we really need those to be the same. We don't want this to be blurry and then this to be super sharp, right? So no matter how much texture space we waste, we've got to take care of that situation. So we're going to click on all these and then click on set. And look how small those got. Terribly small. But they all match now. Okay? So how do I see them all at the same time? Well, we can right click over it and go to selection and select all of them at once, and you can see that there's the blades and there's the pommel, and you can all see them how they're laid out. Okay? Now we don't have this laid out just yet, but that'll be next. Okay? Now that we have the textile density set up, okay, now we know all of them are going to be the same thing. So this becomes a little easier now at this point. Once I got the textile density set, now we're just knock it out now. So I'm going to click on the handle, okay, and I'm going to go to UV and then automatic map. There we go. And you can see we have that set up. So I'm going to turn off the checkerboard. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go to the edge. I'm going to click off anywhere here. Click back on. Go to edge mode. Okay. And so those two edges actually work together. Now, where's the top and where's the bottom? So let's go ahead and go to UV, right? And highlight the top, right? So do they all highlight, or does anything at the bottom highlight? Okay. So if you see something at the bottom highlight and I rotate around, that means that is upside down, wherever that is. Not sure. I think it's this one right here. Let me double check. And it is. So that is, this whole shell is rotated wrong. So to fix this, I can right click over and go to shell, click on the shell, and then you guessed it, we can rotate with the transform. So under transform, we can go rotate that, click once, click twice, and now it's all set up. Go back to, there we go, now they're all at the top, and that's what you're looking for. Okay. Right, so I'm going to go back to edge, and I'm going to click on this edge here and just select it. Now usually you want, with something like this, you want the seam to be in the back. Okay, so if I need to rotate around here and make sure I am facing the Z, and if you look down here you can see the Z. Alright, so when I get closer, I'm going to hit the 5 key a minute, and I'm going to go in here, and we've got all kinds of problems right here. It's like a break right there or something. We don't want that seam to be in the front. We can see all the seams here. We don't want that seam in the front. We want it in the back. So this one I want to go ahead and connect. So I'm going to click on this one and this one, and I'll go all the way down. Okay. Right. And then I'm going to move and sew. There we go. So those are all moved and sewed together. The next one is this one right here. Okay, so I'm going to click on this guy, hit the Q key, and hold the shift key down and click on all of those. Go to move and sew. There we go. Great. And then at the very back we have two more, looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and go to edge and click on this last one. And move and sew, right? Cut and sew, and then move and sew. There we go. And that leaves us one little piece right there. Well, I want to cut it right down the middle in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and cut and just select these guys right here. And you can see that I can also do it here, but I like doing it in here. Physically I can see that. Okay, that'll be the back. And then I'm going to go to cut and sew, and I'm going to go to cut. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge right here. I'm going to go to edge mode. Hold the shift key down to kind of select all those down. That. I'm going to go to cut and sew, and I go to move and sew. Now we've got everything looking good. So the seams in the back. That looks great. And then all I'm going to do is, we got all kinds of distortion, I just know it. So I'm going to go in here and click on the checkerboard and check it out. And yes, we got all kinds of stretching right here. And of course, we taught you how to do this too. Click on that guy, and you can see that we've got all kinds of issues in here. Okay, so click back off, and then the way to fix it is to select the shell and scroll down and go to unfold. Ooh, look at that. Beautiful. Looks really nice. Then click on the checkerboard, and it's perfect. The only thing we have to do next is make sure the textile density is correct. Well, it's already set. Look at that. It's already set. I haven't changed it. I'm going to go in here and click on this guy right here, and then click on set. And notice that made it a lot smaller. Okay. When I click on the checkerboard, though, you can see that it looks really good. And how does it look compared to the rest of them? So let's go into the shell, and let's go ahead and move that shell around a little bit like that. There we go. We're going to go into object mode. So make sure in your object mode, and I'm going to click on all of them. Okay. Now you can see that the top, pommel, and the handle, and the blade are all looking fantastic. The resolution and textile density are all exactly the same, and that's what you're looking for. Okay, we got one more piece to do real quick. Okay, click on your selection mode, and this is the same kind of thing. We're going to go in here to UVs and go to automatic map, and it comes up with something like this, which is fine. Turn off the uncheckered, and this actually did a fantastic job of laying out the UVs. Maybe over here it's not so good, but if we look at it, looks really nice. That the seams are good. The seams are real good. Not a problem. We could even have a seam right here and it wouldn't be a problem. So believe it or not, Maya did a really good job with this. And it's unusual. We don't have to do much. So the only thing I would suggest that we do is select everything and go to unfold, just to make sure that everything's looking good. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything and get it in the right textile density. Click on set. There we go. And so let's do it one more time, meaning that I'm going to go into object mode up here, and I'm going to select everything, and I got some overlapping UVs. So let's go in here to these shells here. Let's move those over like that. Alright, so now what we need to do is the textile density is all completed, all the pieces, and so I need to double check them. So I'm going to click on them, and you can look in here, and it looks really good. Okay, let's get around to the front. There we go. And so go right from the top and move our way down. Perfectly aligned and textured. Okay, so now once we have that done, let's go into UV shell. Now we need to start packing them together into the right UDEM tiles. So each one of these tiles is one UDEM tile, and you start at the 0, which is right here. Let's go ahead and turn off the checkerboard. So it's 0 to 1, 0 to 1 that way, and 0 to 1 that way. And if we go across, this is tile 1001, 1002, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to use 4 of them. Right? So we're going to go ahead and just start moving those. I think the blade is something that is pretty important. Okay, and it doesn't matter really where you put these. Okay, but what I did notice was that on this one it was rotated a little bit off. So I'm going to rotate that around, and that's super important. Scroll down and then go ahead and orient shell. Perfect. You might want to do that with all of them. Okay. Just make sure that they're oriented properly, and some of them, no matter what you do, they don't orient properly. You can do it better yourself. So it just is how it is what it is. Okay. That looks good. All right, get them all into the UV shell. And we'll start with the blades, like that. And then this one's okay, it's kind of spread apart, that's okay. And then this one here, there we go. And then that. So they're all good. And then we'll come back and I'll show you how to get everything saved.